Well, I think if people are literate, because my husband is literate, and his his books are his friends.
Yeah,
There's nothing I could do to separate him from his books,
yeah, totally.
right? They're so important to him
Yeah,
because there's friendship there, and there's respect there, and leadership there, and there's all these things in those books.
I'm taking a stab at this. They are what he belongs to and believes in, and that is the definition of sacred, because then you belong to something larger than yourself, and then you are not alone. So that's my answer to you. I don't really feel like an outsider because I don't put myself in the art realm at all. I don't give a damn about what the art magazines say. I mean, they've botched it so bad for the last 100 years. It's like,
Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in today. Uh, Today with me, I have a master sculptor. His name is Sabin Howard, and he is unveiling, and it will be unveiled when you get this video. Uh, it's a sculptor. It's in Washington, D.C. Uh, it's on the Mall, very close to the White House, and it's to commemorate the First World War. And it's called A Soldier's Journey. 60 feet wide, 32 figures, I think he said in it. An iconic centerpiece of the World War I memorial. And he's a recognized leading classical figurative sculptor right now. And he can sculpt like the masters of the past. And that's what inspires him. And so he's looking to bring a renaissance in art to the forefront. And I had a great conversation with him. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Thanks. Hi, Sabin.
thank you for having me today.
Sabin Howard. I just met Sabin yesterday in Washington, D.C. It was just really a miracle that we even met up, because I was only told about you like the day before that. Instead, I was going to be in Washington, and my friend said, "Oh, I'll contact him. Oh, yeah, he's there. You can meet." I was like, "Okay, this is meant to be."
Yeah, it was meant to be, definitely. Very
Yeah,
much. Yeah,
yeah. And so I met you and your wife Tracy,
yeah,
and we met by the World War I memorial that
yeah,
is going to be unveiled tomorrow.
that's right.
Yes, are you ready?
Yes, I am, because look, it's been 9.5 years, and really, it it's one step at a time. It's you don't something so massive, you can't think way ahead. You just think, okay, what am I going to do this incrementally in small little moments of walking forward.
All right, the next right step, huh?
Yeah, exactly. It's a marathon.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
So how large is the monument?
Look, it's almost 60 feet and 38 figures in a composition that is truly inspired by the Italian Renaissance. It's 25 tons,
Are they life-size figures?
slightly over life size. So we're at 6'6" as a minimum, going all the way up to 7'2". And then the vantage point is you're really looking at eye level, the knees. So you're looking up into the figures, so they have an aura and an energy that makes them look monumental.
So what inspired you to do this project?
It is a very funny story because everybody asks me that, and the answer is not exactly what you would think. Um, it actually started specifically on October 22nd at 4 p.m. 1982, where I was working in a wood shop in South Philly, and 4 o'clock, I was like, I cannot do this any longer, and I had it in my head, not knowing how the rest of the world was, that I was going to make Renaissance art like Michelangelo, Leonardo, and Raphael. And so I head to my boss and I go, I quit. And he goes, no, you can't quit. And we got into a little scuffle. And he goes, well, I'm not going to pay you. And I give him the finger and walked out the door.
Yeah, that's what a youngster's like, really.
That's exactly it, totally naive, not knowing. And I think this is what allows us to do things at that moment in life. When you're 19 years old, it's like, I'm unstoppable. And I called the art school and I asked her, how do I get in? And she said, you need a portfolio. I didn't even know what a portfolio was. I couldn't draw. And so then I went over, I met with her, and she gave me a book that I needed to pick up, a drawing on the right side of the brain. And
Oh,
that,
I read that when I was 17.
yeah, that, I went home and I was like, oh my God, my brain had smoke coming out the ears because it was so difficult, but it's so engaging because all of a sudden it was like I was using parts of my mind that had been asleep for years. And I need that. I need that challenge, intellectual and physical challenge of being a human being and being alive. And so I was so excited, and it got me on a path. And I was like, I'm going to make art like Michelangelo. And so it only took 42 years, but we got there. So that's better than not.
So what did you know about Michelangelo at that point?
I grew up in both New York and Italy, and being in Italy as a very little kid, that's what was my first language. And so my grandfather brought me around Torino, which is a northern city of Italy, very Baroque. And I saw the beauty, and I was very inspired by just the culture of Italy. I go back to New York, and I felt like I wasn't in the place where I was supposed to be. New York City in the 60s was a counterculture place with Vietnam War was really rampant in my neighborhood. A lot of veterans coming back, junkies in the street. It was bad. And so I saw that, and I always wanted to go back to Italy. So in some ways, making my art for the last 42 years was a way to reconnect with that energy that I had as a child. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that isn't as strange as it sounds, because I do think that if we have something that happens and you were really picked up from Italy and brought to United States at a time where there was a lot of upheaval,
Yeah.
that would be awakening. That would be an awakening experience.
Yeah. It was almost like I would go to this place that was very calm in Italy and beautiful, and I felt connected. And then I would go back to the United States, and I felt I was entering into the chaos, and always felt the stress level that was very aggressive and scary for a child.
Mm-hmm. And so are you Italian?
Yeah. Well, my bloodline's half Italian, half American, and I'm a citizen of both countries. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to do art for both of us.
That's right. But I think, honestly, the Italians have something that is unattainable. You can't really do it again. They've done it. We have not done it. And this country is amazing for that very reason. You can do things that have never been done before and manifest your destiny. Italy is more traditional in its methodology.
Yeah, we've done things in absolutely every direction possible except for the traditional way.
Yeah. This is now the American cultural renaissance. This is the first. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's partly why I think this monument is going to do so well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm a really strong proponent of Western civilization, if you can't tell. That is my God. Honestly, that's I go to the Louvre and I see pieces like the Nike, and that is like, to me, brings me to tears, opens my heart.
And why do you think that happened? That traditional methods and the methods that we worked so hard to formulate and propagate. I mean, I understand it, but exactly what was it about it that brought you there?
Personally, the act of drawing with a pencil and paper and a model is a very, very human action that it really, like I said, when I began drawing, it was incredible to be able to perceive the world from a different place. And then once I received an amazing education from a German man and going back to Italy, the education developed a perception of reality that is just, it is godlike in some ways. There is a sense of unity and cohesiveness, and you don't have this fractured divisiveness that technology has brought upon us. And so I really am anti-AI and the dehumanization of what the human experience is. You need to be in the physical plane. All these things that make your life easier are detriments to your actual existence. That's my idea. So,
yeah, well, I think I think there's definitely a place for that because, well, reflection on what we do know and what we don't know,
Yeah.
and where we're going with it, kind
Yeah.
of without knowing. And there's a we have all our children, and we want to take them there. Are you sure? Are you sure that's where we should take our
Oh,
children?
that's well said, Tammy. It's really, that's so true. What I have done, um, the alpha and omega of this 60-foot sculpture is the next generation. It's my daughter actually, and she is the the place, the home that the dad leaves on this voyage, the hero's journey, and then returns to after the ordeal and transformation on that wall that I've done with the 38 characters. And I really, how a country treats its children speaks volumes to actually how much it cares for its citizens. And this is my way of contributing to the fray of elevating consciousness and rising to the occasion. So there's so many elements I don't have control over, but I do have control over my art. And this is a really big step for so many people that have been waiting for something to recognize them, and a sculpture for we the people, that's unheard of today.
Right, right. So let's start at the beginning of this, the left hand beginning where you showed me. So you started me at the beginning where there's the daughter and the mother and the father.
So yeah, you walk up into this piazza or square. It's right by the White House, 150 yards. So immediately you're in this sacred space, and it was treated that way. And you walk up to, oh, it's an altar almost. Of this story. And the left side, Tammy and I were there 48 hours ago, I guess, and I showed you the first scene is the Victorian era, and it is a daughter who hands her dad kneeling before her with his wife, her hands on his shoulders, and it is a peaceful, naive moment before World War One hit the globe. And then you move to the next scene, which is this tug of war between family and service to one's country. And that is what this dad, who has now been pulled into the service, is ripped apart physically. One side is held by his wife, and the other side he is engaged and pulled forward by his fellow soldiers. It is a very kinetic piece. And then all of a sudden, now you move into the next level because it's a symphony, a visual symphony that explodes into a battle scene. And you have 6 men. They're not separate. It's like one unit. And they are all types, all individuals, but they have an animalistic rage and aggression, which is basically Mars advancing. That is what war is, Mars. It's the aggression of man. And it is led now by the father, who is in this very open, vulnerable, courageous pose. It's almost a crucifix pose, but catapulted forward, led by his head screaming and his arms splayed. One arm holds a gun. And it's the largest figure. It's a central figure. You would never think that's an Apollo or a crucifix type figure. That's what it was inspired by. And then my favorite part and the focus of the wall is what comes next. It's the cost of war. The cost of war is a Pietà scene reminiscent of Michelangelo's Dying Christ. And from this moment till the end, I use veterans so their faces have their history, the shell-shocked actual aspect of what happened. There's a deformity of faces and expressions that are very severe and very strong and determined to survive. The nurse is the next scene. She's a very large nurse carrying a gassed soldier who's kneeling in front, and his hand is like outstretched, and it's like searching for life. He's on the edge of madness, and there is a gas mask that he has taken out of his box, and it dangles in front of him like a skeleton. It's the vertebra going down to a skull. There's definitely an allegory there. And then now we proceed to the right, and that's the very focus of this whole wall, and it's the shell-shocked figure. I spent 1,100 hours on that figure. On average, they were 650 hours each. But this one was my tour de force, and I struggled through that one. I really took a beating on that one. um,
Why do you say that? What
because
happened?
because I had to change the sculpture at full scale. So that's rarely done, especially with deadlines like what we had. So it's like you're redesigning. And I made the legs longer. I made the arms. I changed them. Uh, Opened the stride, and he's walking right off the platform right at you. And that it broke several times because we didn't have a correct armature because of the enlargement. Uh, I managed to get through that. I used a veteran for the body and another veteran for the arranger for the head, and they both went through shell shock. One of them tried to commit suicide in his previous life before he came to work for me. So this is yeah, I'm learning. I'm learning from them all the time. And there were college boys and actors for the initial scenes, but now we're moving into like these are real men that have gone into something that civilians don't know about it. I don't know about it. I wasn't there, but I tried to learn as much as I could to be in service of what they did. And that figure's really strong. He's off the wall. Yeah, he's off the wall the most of the whole wall. And the next figure is another nurse, and that the next section I call the superhero section under the flag. And the nurse is again carrying a soldier who cannot walk. It's a very powerful figure. I've raised her up on a pile of rocks diagonaling down, and so she's the same height as her other superhero compatriot, who's a soldier carrying another soldier in a triptych that I call the Three Amigos, and he's looking back at the shell shocked soldier when he's left but moving home, always home. Everybody always moves home. And then there's the flag bearer with another soldier next to him and a woman. Again, very large, very locomotive like coming home. And the next group is the final group. And here the dad has returned and he hands his daughter the helmet. The helmet is the next generation, and that is World War II. And that last figure is very strong, even though she is so small. And it is. I have two daughters. I have experienced two marriages. I do not think women have been portrayed correctly in our era, and so this is a real. If you ask me what is the most creative element of the whole memorial, it is the way that women are so powerful. They have the same uh, level of energy. It's female, but they're the same level as energy as the men. And it makes the sculpture incredibly cohesive in a way because it doesn't take into account just one sector of our species. I really like that. It gives the men more their masculinity and it gives the women more their femininity. I don't believe in all that other stuff. They're two they're males and females, and that's what you got on the wall. And it's a really strong piece that everyone has come to and said thank you for what you have done for us.
Hmm. And those male and female, those are the ideal. It's a portrayal of what could be, and
Yeah,
maybe what was as well
yeah,
at some point.
yeah. But it says Mars is war, and when war happens, world gets out of balance, and Venus is Aphrodite. Venus is love and what brings us together. And the mother in the beginning, the heroic mom, is absolutely, in some way, affected by what I did prior to this. I did figurative gods out of Greco-Roman ideologies, and it was Apollo was one of them, Aphrodite was another one, and I really I studied anatomy incredibly hard and learned how the body could be abstracted into these architectonic solids. This is very, very from a previous era, and I'm bringing it forward and I'm representing it in a very contemporary way. And I'm so happy to share this with you today. You know,
And so, what's it like being outside of the herd, like just doing things that nobody else is doing?
I don't know anything else.
Right.
uh,
I mean, do you have compatriots that are
Not so much.
not so much? Eh? Well, I guess that's a sign of the times, really, isn't
I
it?
don't hang out with artists so much, really, honestly. Um, I used to be a lit major before I became an artist, and my wife is a novelist and a writer and a storyteller. And I'm fascinated by story. I feel like story and history is what binds us together in a way that is um, archaic in a way, are seen as archaic, but it's not. It's archetypal. I there's so much of a misdirection of what an artist is supposed to be, like this flighty, inspired guy who gets hit by lightning. Like it's not like that. It's like you get inspired when you show up at work at 8:30, and I have a very blue collar mentality about making my work. It's just like, let's go. I don't care how you feel today. Let's go. Let's get it done. And show up every day and like clockwork, do what you need to do. It's my purpose. It's my dharma. So it gives me this stability. And I said to you, it's like happiness is fleeting, but purpose gets you out of bed every day. So
Hmm.
I'd rather have purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what my husband says, right? He says you find meaning and responsibility.
Yeah. Very much.
Very much, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a good point you're making. The responsibility that the sculpture carries, the gravitas of it. I felt it on the day that I won in 2016 in January. I was like a little bit shocked that it had been handed to me, this mantle, because it's a serious thing that I'm doing. I'm representing my country because you're doing the monument on the mall. So that means the sculpture is a representation of who we are as a country. So it better damn well be good. Or you're going to make a crappy sculpture and then that's the way the country is crappy. So, I mean, that was always, but the competition in my head is always with myself. It's not with contemporary artists. And it also, to be honest with you, it's also with Michelangelo in the past. Those are my competitors. Those are my guides. They are the ones that I hear in my voice, in my internal voice, that lead me. So I don't feel alone when you ask me that, Tammy. It's like I feel like my friends are in Italy, in the churches like Santa Croce in Florence or St. Peter's. Those are my friends. Sounds a little bit absurd to a lot of people, but they talk to me.
Well, I think if people are literate, because my husband is literate, and his his books are his friends.
Yeah,
There's nothing I could do to separate him from his books,
yeah, totally.
right? They're so important to him
Yeah,
because there's friendship there, and there's respect there, and leadership there, and there's all these things in those books, in
yeah.
those authors.
They are. I'm taking a stab at this. They are what he belongs to and believes in, and that is the definition of sacred. Because then you belong to something larger than yourself,
Right,
and then you are not alone.
right. There you go. Hmm.
So that's my answer to you. I don't really feel like an outsider because I don't put myself in the art realm at all. I don't give a damn about what the art magazines say. I mean, they've botched it so bad for the last 100 years. It's like, please.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Are there any other pieces of art that are a soldier's journey like this one is? Or is this new?
This is honestly, I. This is really the first time in the history of mankind that you have this definitive and defined of a story that of the soldier that what he does, so leaving a family and going into combat and then getting messed up by that ordeal and then coming home and he's not the same.
Right. You know, my security, many of them are military guys. Some of them still current military, some of them retired. But one of them was with me yesterday, and he showed you at the beginning the struggle between the family and going with his guys. And he was saying, right, I couldn't leave my guys. I had to go with my guys, but it broke his heart to leave his family.
Yeah.
And, and his family's now all grown, and he's still burdened by that decision
Yeah.
and that necessity.
Yeah. It's a rough one. I've seen it. I actually went through something not the same as him, but it was like I left and went to New Zealand and left my family for 9 months. And it was my guys were the art that I made. And I have still very ambivalent feelings about having left my family to make my art. I understand that.
I had a dream. My dad died, eh? I told you that. He died in December. And
Yeah.
then Jordan's mom died this spring. And then after the celebrations were over, I had 2 dreams. One about my dad and one about his mother, which I was pretty grateful for. But when it was my dad, he was a young man. And of course, I didn't know him when he was a young man, because you don't know your father when he's young.
Yeah.
But I dreamt of him and just getting out of high school
Yeah.
and becoming a man. And in it, he was changing hats. And he put on a stovepipe and it went right over his body.
Wow.
And I was like, oh. I said, and I thanked him for being my father, and I wished him to wait for me so I could be with him again. But I thought, wow, when a boy becomes a man, if he steps into the role of father and of provider, he is no longer a boy.
Yeah.
In no respect. And then I thought of my children who have little babies now, and I thought, they're stepping into their roles. And I'm so grateful to them for stepping into those roles, because they do not get to be children anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, it's part of being a human being and having the child, and it changes you. You're transformed forever. There's no returning. Even if you get divorced and forget about your kid, you've already done it, and now you're in it. And no matter what, it's like I had my first daughter at 26, and it grew me up really fast and made it really complicated as an artist. I totally agree with you. It's part of us.
Yes. So that's how old you were, 26, when you decided to go to art school?
I know, 19. I was 19.
Oh, 19. Oh, you were very young. Very young.
It was really like, okay, this is what you're doing. There's no out of this, all eggs in one basket. Let's go. It was like, there's no option here. I had no option in my head. And I mean, it's like now I realize 61 years old, you were supposed to do this and everything's been laid out for you. And now you just have to follow that path. As long as show up every day and do what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. That's a spiritual quest.
Yeah, I'm on one. I'm absolutely on one. My art is not about the ironic. It's about spiritual understanding of what does it mean to be in the human condition. And I think that's why people like it, because it's not like didactic at all. It's very approachable. You don't need to read a damn book to get it. Yeah, and I was psyched when your security man had an emotional moment when he saw that, and I embrace that. That's the best thing for me as an artist. That is so cool to be able to make something that opens someone's heart to they can be vulnerable at that moment. And I thank you for bringing that up. That is what my purpose is. It's to bring people together under the aegis of higher spirituality and higher consciousness. Move us out of the humdrum daily existence.
Right. Even if the societies were more put together, it doesn't matter how much it's fallen apart or how well it's put together. You still have to do this this kind of journey that is particular to you.
Yeah.
Particular to you and inspired by God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very much.
Yeah, otherwise we're not fulfilling whatever it is that needs to be done in the world, and then it does fall apart. So how do you define beauty in art? I've been talking to this man named David Clayton, and he is married to this woman, Margarita Mooney Clayton, and so I met her, and she kind of told me about her husband. I'm going to interview him. But he wrote a book on the way of beauty, and he believes that that's how we uh, adore our God is to engage in the beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. I can answer that very succinctly, actually. Making the type of figures that I make that are inspired by the Renaissance and Greco-Roman work, there's a translation of reality. And in that translation, what you're really studying is the skeleton. And the skeleton is the structure of how we are assembled. And so we're not architecture, but if you make a sculpture, you're making something comparable to architecture. And the muscles themselves are like this DNA helix. It spins around that architectural solid, and it's in movement. It's thrusting forward. Even the simple act of standing is you are defying gravity. It's an I am statement. And that is the human condition. And that is an understanding that you are now engaged in life, and living is the spiritual act. And so my art shows that in energetic terms or forces of nature, as these architectonic solids of the skeleton and the muscles move and defy gravity and proceed forward.
And reach for what is best, eh?
Yeah, yeah.
By standing up.
Yeah. The actual moment of standing is an I am statement. It is I am. It means I am alive. That is the definition of being connected with God. You are alive. As soon as you're dead, you're connected in God on another level that I don't know yet. But I'll tell you when I get there.
My dad was going on another journey. He was in his dying time trying to get out of bed. His arm and his leg were getting out of bed. He was going somewhere. He was going to meet my mom and to meet his parents and everything. I could tell he was going, and he wasn't. He was done here. He was going. It was quite something to see.
Out the door.
Yeah, out the door. Like he always did. Only this was the door to heaven.
Wow.
So the sculptural process, I'm curious about that because I'm not a sculptor. I worked in clay some, but I never, and I fired what I had, but I never worked in bronze. What's that like?
There's something magic about it, Tammy. It's like if I make a sculpture of someone and it's really accurate in capturing their energy, and then you cast it, you have now put their energy on the planet forever, in so to speak, and so it's a way to beat mortality. So that sculpture contains also the artist's energy, and so my energy has beaten mortality. So I've left something behind, and by leaving something behind, I was taught as a child to leave this world better off when you leave it than when you came in it. And so this is my contribution to this world and Western civilization. And so that is, again, a sense of purpose and a sense of giving back to others and making that connection. It opens my heart in a way that it's not money. This is so much more valuable than material things. It's a very spiritual thing. It's sacred. It's belonging to something larger than oneself.
Yes, and it's also it's a positive celebration or respect for masculinity and femininity.
Yeah.
In the service of our country. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. There's a lot of these men that I sculpted as soldiers that went off to Afghanistan and Iraq. They all received pretty serious wounds physically, and not to speak of the mental, what they left behind. The return, it's almost like leaving. They said, not exactly in these terms, but in more literary type terms, it's like you leave the Garden of Eden and you enter into this hell. and there's no return. So Ricky Zambrano, I can say his name because he did a documentary with Tracy and laid this all out for others to see. It's He said when he got to that place where there was a floor and it was black and he fell through that floor, he had no idea how many more levels he could fall. It just continued happening.
Yeah, that's
And
terrifying.
yeah, and it's like, and then he tried to off himself, and then he changed his mind and he saved. And that was a moment that he came back to himself and realized that the energy to take care of himself, nobody was going to come save him, was within already. And that was his connection with the divine and God. And it is not this biblical thing, but it is a connection to something larger. And that understanding has now driven him to a very optimistic, positive person. The dark shadows are always there. Those demons are always there, but he has a way of dealing with it. And I think our society ignores the demons that we carry with us in our daily life and puts us towards entertainment, which is a band-aid because you're not dealing with the nitty-gritty of what it means to be human. Like, oh, I have cancer and now I may die. Or my mom died or my dad died and now, oh my God, I got 12,000 more days on the planet. Things like this, we don't discuss this in society. And I can discuss it with my art in a way that's not like, hitting you over the head with a mallet, so that you can actually go look at it and say, oh, all the rest of you guys and people, you're in the same boat as I am. I'm not alone on this. And that's a very deep thing that we're all dying. I don't mean to make this morbid, but it's like, oh, we're all in the same boat together. That gives you a feeling of reassurance, I think.
Well, all those people in your sculpture, they all have a purpose. They all have meaning. They all have destiny. It's a story. It's a story. And if you're part of a story, then if you're part of a story, and the story can be a tragedy or it can be a comedy, I guess, so it can be both those things, either of those things. And you want to try to make the story, although it might be difficult, there has to be some redemption in it somewhere, right? To make it all worthwhile.
Yeah. It's the connection, I think. All the figures are all connected, except the shell shock soldier. They're all intertwined like this, like their arms.
It kind of looked like a locomotive. You mentioned locomotive, and I thought, yeah, that's what that is. It was there in the turmoil of this machine that's just going ahead, whether they're ready or not.
Yeah.
It's
That's
really something to see.
It's my philosophical statement. If you're in a jam, don't stay still. Just do something. Move forward. It could be the wrong thing, but then you can make a decision to redirect, but you got to move. You got to go. And it's very, this project's so great for me in some ways, the subject matter, because it's like you get in the military and it's like, what are you taught when you're in the military and you're attacking? Go, move forward. Then what is the most used word in combat? Forward. That's what you hear in the movies. It's like, that's what the central figure is doing, forward. But the shell shock soldier is not. He's completely in chaos.
He's standing there. Yeah.
And it's the most stress-producing sculpture on the wall because he's confused. He can't make heads or tails of what he's been through in this like battle scene that he just came out of. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. No, it's a really it's quite a comprehensive analysis of the story of a soldier.
Yeah. I think humanity. I mean, it's like, this is a very unique podcast that I'm doing with you because I really haven't delved into this concept of like how this is a sculpture, yes, about soldiers, but about the human condition on a very deep level, because it's my philosophy about life. I never really thought about it. It's like I make a lot of decisions on like how I'm going to put things together. And now, honestly, this is the first time in nine years that I actually have discussed it, because I never really thought about it on those terms. It's like you make level artistic decisions based on your unconscious.
Yes.
So now you're the catalyst, Tammy, to put this out.
Oh, that's nice. Well, there'll be more, but I get to be in here, so that I'm happy about that. Do you think art schools need restructuring? American art schools, I would say North American art schools need restructuring. I went to art school for a bit. I'd like to hear your answer.
Uh, yeah, I get a lot of requests for young kids to reach out. Hello, I love your art, Mr. Howard. I would like to make art like you. What can I do? And I'm like, I feel terrible because it's the options have been shut down. What I had is maybe if I define what I had as a young 19 and 20-year old. um, Look, first of all, there was one thing that wasn't around. It was the cell phone and the computer. We that was not. I didn't have a cell phone till I was 37, nor a computer till I was 37. So everything was analog. You would write everything down and take notes, which I think is a big deal. Writing on paper, and then the next step is drawing from a life model. And so my freshman year, I had a man named Dante Catani who was older. He was 70, and he had an art training in the 20s with Bridgman, which was kind of a last real hurrah for classicism in the figure in the Art Students League. They produced all the sculptures in Central Park and around the city, like 59th Street Circle.
Oh yeah, I've seen some of those.
Yeah, yeah. So that's what I came out of freshman year. So you take figure drawing class. I did take a figure drawing class and the painting class, and the teacher told me to draw with my left hand, and I refused to do it. And then he came over and said, "Why aren't you doing this?" And I said, "I don't want to do it." And he goes, "Well, this is the exercise today." And I was like, I don't want to do it. And he said, "Well, please, because it's going to free you up from technique." And I actually said out loud in front of all the other students and him, "F you," like really loud.
Oh dear.
And then he took me out in the hall, and I was 19 years old. He said, "Why are you so insistent on trying to do something archaeological like the Renaissance? It's already." He said to me, "It's already been done. That you can't do it that well." And I was like thinking in my head, "You jackass! Of course you can't do it because you don't think you can put your mind to it." He was a modernist from, Maurice Bird. That was his name. I'll never forget his name. I think I really pissed him off good. The rebellious artist. And then I go into like this other class in sophomore year was anatomy drawing with Martha Erlbacher, who was the wife of Walter Erlbacher. He was the man from Germany who came out of the Bauhaus, which is, modernist school. And then his whole family had been killed by the Holocaust, and he ends up in teaching at Pratt, and he's doing abstract art for the Whitney, but then he decides he's going to do figurative art. And the education I got from him was very, very apprehensive because it was scientific, how you deduce your information looking at the model. So we had an armature that was articulated and proportioned like the human skeleton. We would build those, and then we would have these cubes of the body parts, and each joint would move at a specific movement, like rotation, abduction, adduction, flexion, extension. What is compressing? What is extending? So a very comprehensive way of looking at a whole figure, and we'd be given a protractor and then a list of like these are the angles of each joint. Now build that from memory, and you see how abstract that is, and then that's our basis, our structure, our framework for the figure. And then you would put the muscles on, insertion to origin, subdividing it. And then that subdivision was a way that you would delineate or map out the body. And then those parts would be cohesive to like a whole thigh would have, 8 different muscles groupings that you had to do insertion to origin. And wherever those spots were where they dive into the bone, because they all attach to bones, would demarcate like the beginning of the thigh. So it's a very clear, it's crystal clear, but it's very you're separating the body. And then I went back to Italy and learned from Paolo Carasone in Rome for 2 years how to look at the body as a unified field where the surface is skin and it's continuous, but I'd had this other information, so the two were like the aha moment of unifying and separating, and that's why I think I am a really good sculptor, because I learned how to draw at the same time as sculpt, and then to break the body down into this way of understanding. Um, that I told you this now because that got taken off the curriculum.
Oh God,
Or
and I spent my life looking for that. You
yeah,
know,
it's not
I
there.
studied sciences, I studied anatomy, I went to art school. I have a science degree in, human movement, really. And I have not a bad understanding, but to really talk about the angles and the insertions and the origins of every muscle, and to see how they build on one another, to see
Yeah,
how they form each limb. Uh, if you want to give life to a sculpture, you have to know everything about that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And whether it's
Right.
uh, starving or needs hydration, you need to know what it looks like in different states. Yeah,
Yeah,
very interesting.
yeah. And it's really it's part of storytelling. I mean, get more advanced in it. It's like the body type that you get is a history of what you've been through emotionally, and so it shows up in your body, like how things are jammed up or extended, what muscles are developed. I mean, just silly example: big calves are anger, things like that. It's like where you hold your stress.
That's because whenever you're angry, you go for a walk.
Right. Slam down the road. Yeah, yeah. It's so deep, and so I was told by a student back. This is like 83 or 84. You're stupid because you want to do the figure. And she was going to Yale University. And I was like, I'm not stupid. You don't understand it. And, and so it's already back then, it was like this um, really looking at the figure as anybody who does the figure is stupid. But you have to be so intellectual and then also very precise and organized in how you proceed through the process. So it's like schools like Yale destroyed it on purpose. They were like, you got to think about it a little bit. If these teachers, these academics were not being paid to make their art, I call it stipend art, it wouldn't happen. And I didn't have that. I had to make art for a public, and they had to like it. But I had to be honest to my truth and who I was. It puts you at a whole nother level of like experience in society. So I'm not operating out of like Ivory Castle. I had to do it because I had to make rent and pay for my daughter's tuition and make sure that we all had bread on the table. But I also had to like be true to like my own drive and passion to recreate the Renaissance on modern terms. That's a high order. Luckily, I'm made for pressure. I'm very good with pressure. You hold a gun to my head, and I perform like 100% better than if I'm just like, oh, whatever.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
I'm
that's
lucky
kind of
that way.
that's handy if that. Yeah,
Yeah,
when you put yourself in under. I mean, this must have been because it was supposed to be done. Was it actually supposed to be done for right now?
yeah,
You're
yeah.
yeah.
We hit the deadline exactly.
Oh, good for you.
Exactly. Yeah, on time, on budget, and that's a lot for something this big.
Oh, I know what I wanted to ask. This is about your wife.
Yes.
How do you balance the commercial aspect of art with your passion for the craft? I
I
think of this as bringing your wife into the conversation.
Yeah. When you say commercial, you're thinking about the business of art.
Yes. Hmm.
So Tracy, my wife, was a novelist and a very good writer, and wrote a bestseller in many countries in Italy. And but then things took a turn. Also, two things happened. The publishing world went very woke, and her stuff was very much like Western civilization and traditional values. And so that was all of a sudden like blocked. So she couldn't get to where she wanted to. And then I got this giant project and it required all of me. And so we had a little bit of a readjustment, which is, it happens in long-term marriages, 25 years. And it actually, we went into marriage 2.0 where she came to work with me, but then it wasn't only just running the business. She became the next step in Tracy's evolution, which was to become a documentarian. And so all the stuff she'd learned about story now became part of the visual creation. Uh, it's incredible to work with my wife. I just have to tell you this, Tammy. It's like the first day that I met her, we were not married to each other. We were married to other people. And so then um, our older daughters were best friends. And that's how I went to pick up my daughter on a play date on the Upper West Side. And all of a sudden, it's like I meet this woman and I'm like, oh my God, it's like, I need to know more. We talked for 5 hours and we have so much in common. But the thing that really attracted me to Tracy was her understanding of energy as a healer. And it was like this whole new vocabulary that I wanted to know more about. And in Italy, they say, oh, women don't have the same power that men do. That's not true. Absolutely not true. The woman is the one who has the power in the house. She points the man's head in the right direction, and then he goes out in the world and does it. But she's the one who's actually management. As I call my wife management as a joke, because she directs me. And it's been like that up till now. In a way, it's like we're very equal. We have a very balanced, like, respect for each other. Um, I'm very, very lucky to have met her. I would not be here without her. And she came on board, became my partner in making this memorial, taking on the business. It's horrible stuff to do, all that business stuff.
Well, that's what you think, but I bet that's not what she thinks.
A little bit. She took her out of her writing, so she gave up 3-4 years for me, and now I'm giving back to her. It's like we always joke, you have everything. I'll just make sure I have a bicycle and I'm good to go. I have everything. I don't care about material things. I just like to ride and make my sculpture and be with my family. I have a very clear, simple vision of my life. I think it's unusual for most artists. It doesn't get complicated. I don't drink. I eat really well. I try to connect with energy that keeps me grounded and pure with God. I know this sounds crazy, but I will attach myself to a giant tree and feel the energy running through the tree through my legs into the ground. And it is a cleansing energy that it's very, very powerful to understand these things.
So you're on a carnivore diet, and I'm on a carnivore diet. Is that correct? Yes.
I eat meat all the time. I do eat vegetables, though. But yes,
you do eat vegetables.
I do, but it's limited. It's very limited. I eat at least 1.5 to 2 pounds of meat every day. And then it is carnivore. Like I eat steak for breakfast.
Yeah. Well, you have to have only fat and protein in the morning. Otherwise, your insulin levels go up and down all day.
Yeah.
And that makes you feel grounded.
Yes.
Sure.
I'm in my body. You feel everything.
But I think that if you eat fewer carbohydrates, you're much more likely to find your way to God as well.
Really?
Because it clears your mind and it makes you live a very kind of austere life.
More ascetic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. There's no confusion. I don't eat pizza, ravioli, pasta. No, I'm Italian. I don't eat that. No, I don't eat steak. Thank you. Thank you very much. Or fish or chicken. Yeah. And it gives me a clarity in my thought process.
That's what most people say is the most, it's the outstanding feature of this diet is clarity of mind. Yeah.
It raises your testosterone too. And then you have this is a lot of like stuff that they say about testosterone from the medical profession. It's just nonsense. It's like you want to have high levels of testosterone, not for sexual function. That's great. Yes, it's important, gets rid of the gray, the depression, um, and makes you have a sense of clarity in your thoughts. So you're not fuzzy.
No,
Um,
not fuzzy at all.
I wouldn't say you're aggressive, but you have ideas, and then you're like you're not so easy to tame. That's how
Yes. Well, I went and gave a talk at a Catholic dynamic ladies or something like that. And I talked to them, and then 250 of them stood to shake my hand. And so I was shaking hands and shaking hands. And there was just all these little ladies, some older, some younger. And then this one woman comes up, and she's standing really straight, and she's a little bit taller than me, like everybody mostly is. But anyway, she comes up to me and she goes, "How do you do? I'm such and such. I'm a carnivore. So is my husband. So are my children. Thank you." And then she walked off, and I thought she was a totally different creature from everybody else who shook my hand that day.
Yeah, yeah,
It's really, I think that there's a matrix. There's a matrix component to life these days, and if you get rid of all the carbohydrates, then you're outside the matrix, and you can see clearly.
yeah. You are outside the matrix. You totally are. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Forget about it. It's like you go into this, like, I'm going to lead and I have a vision and I'm not getting in line. And everybody's like, so, like, I go to the airport and everybody's like getting in line. And I'm like, I'm not going to get in line. It's like, that's not good. I don't want to be that person. Ugh, yeah, sorry.
No time for it, right? No time for it.
Well, I'm going to die. I don't have time to get in line.
That's right. That's right.
That's the very fact. We were making a joke one day while I was sculpting, and I go to Ricky. Hey, Ricky, I got around 14,000 days left on the planet. I better make good use of them. And he started laughing because he got it. It's like everybody who remains standing in my studio. They're all the same. We're on a mission. Let's get on it. And we all slam physically and work out really hard. And then we're all grounded. And it's like somebody comes in who's like floaty and stuff. And we're like, what? It's funny.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, I made a family. I'm going to do it again on the next project now. It's yeah.
I'm excited to hear what that'll be. So
yeah.
Good luck tomorrow with the unveiling.
Thank you.
And we'll put this podcast out as soon as we can. I'd like people to know that there's really something to see.
Thank you.
In Washington, D.C.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
All right.
Nice talking to you.
Likewise, Tammy. So I will send you, thank you. I'm going to send, I don't have a lot of time, right? I have to go do more crap.
Yeah, I'm sure you're busy.
Yeah, just going to text you a bunch of pictures right now.
Okay.
They'll be high res and you can use those.
Okay.
I got to move quick in and it'll be really fast if I do that. Then Tammy can just hand her phone over to you and just. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. I'll do that.
Anything that you don't have, come back and I'll try to get it to you this afternoon. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you guys. Tammy, it was really a pleasure. I look forward to more.
Yeah, it'll be fun to introduce you to Jordan.
Yeah, I want to get together with you guys in person. We're going to do something really huge. I want to make this a global movement. I don't want to sit here.
Where do you live?
I'm right now in Connecticut. Doesn't matter though, because I move around.
So you know what? I'm going to put you in touch with my daughter about Peterson Academy. Okay?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to do that. Okay. Great.
Thanks.
Bye.